So greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking, and I am Del Barzi. And as always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment and let us know what you think. And here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world, any stage in their nursing journey, from students to retirees and anywhere in between. And so today, I am very, very pleased to welcome Ms. Shawntay Harris. And Shawntay has been a nurse for 23 years with an extensive background in emergency and trauma services. Her current position is president and CEO of a healthcare education corporation. Shawntay has trained over 100,000 nurses in education suited explicitly for nurses from bedside to senior leadership. Shawntay is working toward completing the Doctorate of Nursing Practice in Executive Leadership degree. She's on the board of the Emergency Nurses Association Foundation and the president-elect of the Texas Emergency Nurses Association. Shawntay lives in Killeen, Texas, and she and her husband are both veterans of the United States Army. In addition, she serves the Emergency Nurses Association as the course administration faculty for the ENA TNCC, which is the Trauma Nurses Core Course, the 9th edition reviewer. And she's also the Central Texas ENA membership chair. Very accomplished, Shawntay Harris. Welcome, and thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
So my first question to nurses is always why? Why are they nurses? Why are you a nurse? What brought you to this?
So interesting question. When I first went to University of Alabama, Huntsville, when I went to Huntsville, basically, my goal was to become an aeronautical engineer. And I was raised by my grandmother, and so she had gotten sick. And so I said, well, how can I be able to help her for the rest of her life? And so it was nursing that I chose. So it was personal inspiration that brought me over to nursing.
It's interesting. There is so many, as I speak to nurses, I find there are so many of us who have that kind of similar story, either, one of our family members or our own selves. And we come in contact with nurses and somehow we get drawn into it. And it's like, okay, this is where I'm meant to be.
Totally.
Yeah. So, aeronautic engineer to nursing. All right. Yeah. So what, if any, what were the challenges though that you faced as coming into nursing?
So for me, as an African-American nurse, and I'll be really open and honest with you, I do have a blog that's about to come out through the American Association of Critical Care Nurses, where I reveal certain things about nursing school, right? So I came in to nursing school as a non-traditional nurse. I had already been to the Army. I was a sergeant in the Army well before I went to nursing school. And it was the disconnect between my professors and myself in nursing school. Again, it was a very small ratio of African-American nursing students, and there were no African-American nursing professors. So it was a disconnect. I talked to the fact that I never had an outside conversation with one of my professors. And that was something, because I was an adult. I had already been in the military for 5 years. I was in my mid-20s. I was already married. I was an adult, and I never had an outside conversation. So that meant that if I didn't understand something in the program, I just studied harder, or I suffered in silence until I did, understand it. I read and, did other things. Back then we didn't have Google. And so I had to look things up and, study harder. So nursing school was very challenging for me. That was the beginning of one of the greatest challenges of my career. It actually started in nursing school. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'll just disclose it all. My dean at my nursing program actually told me to disenroll because I would mess up her NCLEX scores from her 100% pass rate. And it's funny because now I have 8 board certifications and I'm known as a glorified test taker. But I literally asked me in the hallway one day, she just in a casual conversation, said, hey, I would like for you to disenroll from nursing school because you would mess up my NCLEX scores. You will not pass. Very challenging.
So many of us have had that conversation. I can tell you that I became a nurse. I went to nursing school in the United Kingdom in the mid 1970s. That alone tells you. So that conversation about you not passing, are you not going to make it?
Mhm.
I've had it.
Yeah. Very interesting. Funny.
Yeah.
I always reflect on it and I laugh about it now, but yeah, it was a very uneasy conversation. And I literally asked her why, like, why do you think I'm not going to pass the NCLEX? And she basically told me, because you're Black.
Yes, I know. I know. I didn't bother to ask why. I just said to myself, "Watch me."
Yeah.
I managed to make the top of the class. I was like, "Watch me."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally way. Totally rocking this nursing thing. All right. So,
It's okay. I I don't want to dwell on this, but I don't think that people actually realize how much strength they can actually give you when they say things like that. And so I've learned to thank them for it.
I totally thank her for that comment. And I do. Think about it a lot as I move forward in my career. I think about that comment a lot, and it was just a step, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Step
yeah,
after the first. So interesting.
yeah. So moving on from that though, so what areas would you practice in?
So I've been in emergency nurse since the beginning. So the
Okay.
only thing any other thing that I've done was I related to leadership, my other things. So yeah, I've always been an emergency nurse. So 23 years in emergency services. Yeah.
Yeah, so you love that
I know.
adrenaline pumping thing, huh?
I love that adrenaline pumping thing. Yes. Love it.
Okay. Okay. And so you've been a nurse now, you said for 23 years. So it's been a while. You've seen nurses come and nurses go, and for all kinds of reasons. And so one of the things I want to know from us nurses, because you know what, our profession, as great as it is broken in some areas.
Yeah.
It's really is broken. So one of the things I want to know is what could we, if you'd like to see anything change, what would that thing be?
So for me, it would be a nursing leadership development. Because if we develop our leaders and we have a great succession planning model and we develop our leaders, that would lead to sustainability for future nurses, right? So right
Yeah.
now in nursing, we have a generation of nurses who are masters prepared and know where to work, right? Because
Mhm.
they've not been leaders, or they don't have leadership development to move forward. Maybe they were a team lead or a charge nurse or even a manager, and many of them don't know their next step. And
Yeah.
so leadership development is my pillar that I speak to, because it
Yeah.
then trickle down and make better nurses, because we're all right. Nurses are expected to be leaders as soon as they become, licensed, right? We're responsible
Yeah, I
for,
was just about to
right?
say.
It's implied that we are leaders. And so that
Yeah.
part of it, developing them to understand that we are leaders. When after your licensure, you're expected to be a leader. You manage patient care. Is that, but we've got to go back to our basics in order to fill our gaps. And it's
Mhm.
leadership development.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very important, very necessary pillar, because we tend to think that a good nurse is necessarily going to be a good manager, a good leader, and that does not happen without education and instruction and mentorship and preceptorship and training and all of that kind of thing.
Right.
It just doesn't just can't happen.
I always say, because you can start an IV or you can do compressions doesn't mean that you can lead nurses. It means that you are great clinical. And we do
Yes.
appreciate our nurses that remain at the bedside throughout their
Yeah.
careers. But
Yeah.
we also need to develop leaders.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're great clinical. And that's fantastic. I love it. I love it. But you do have to develop if you want nurses. And if we want nurses not to get to stay in this broken place, we need to develop effective nurse leaders.
Because however will we change nursing and we can't develop them as leaders, how will we ever change them? They won't ever know
Ex-
what to change.
yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. We all be the recipient of whatever's wrong. We'll all complain that the people who make decisions for us are not nurses and don't know what we do,
Right.
but we won't be able to step into that role. Yeah. So awesome. I'm so happy that you're doing that. I am so happy that you're doing that. And so you are an entrepreneur.
Hmm?
So what drew you to entrepreneurship?
So what brought me to entrepreneurship? Early in my career, I started my MBA, as many people do, about 4 years after I became a nurse. I went to back to school to get my master's in business. At the time, the BSN MBA, what was preferred for
Mhm.
nurse leaders. So I went
Yes.
with the MBA. It was part of my school project. Was my capstone was my business. It was the American Heart Association Training Center. So in that program, in the capstone, we went step by step on how to develop this business. I never imagined that it would be my lifeline. I totally never imagined that I would train the amount of nurses that I do per year. But I mean,
Mhm.
it was my capstone project, and it has developed into the gift that keeps on giving.
Good, 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 good. Because you know, so many of us don't see ourselves as business leaders, or don't even really see that we can translate the skills that we require as nurses into other areas. And one of the goals of this whole thing is to showcase nurses and let nurses see that we are. I'm not even at this point saying we can be. I started out saying we can be everywhere, but we are everywhere.
Right.
And you as a nurse, and any nurse can be anywhere and everywhere that he or she wants to be, because you've got those skills. You've got those skills.
Our practice, our nursing practice translates easily over to entrepreneurship. And I think that that's
Yes.
part of leadership development. We can start to teach that too, right? That is also an avenue. We tend to teach, the management, the CNO, the this, the that, but there's also that nurse entrepreneur with the same skill set. And so we
Same,
need to
yes.
start teaching that.
Yes, yes, yes. And I speak to so many nurses, and it gives me so much hope to tell you the truth, Shawntay, because it means that we're stepping into places that people don't see us traditionally.
Mhm.
It gives us the opportunity to use that element of surprise and in order to take what we want. You know, I think that element of surprise is an invaluable thing, that, because you step into a room and people do not expect you to have a certain skill or expect you to see yourself in a certain place. Puts them off guard when you do. It gives you a chance to move in.
Great. Great.
So what would you say though? You've done so much, and I see you in, you're on the board, you're on, part of the Emergency Nurses Association. You're reviewing the course material. What would you say is your greatest achievement so far?
I would think sustaining myself as a nurse entrepreneur, right? I started off again with 4 years of experience in nursing when I started to develop my AHA training center.
Mm-hmm.
Soon became incorporated and made it my legal nurse consulting business, and then I added the pillar of the review courses, and then I added more emergency nursing courses to it. So I would just say my greatest benefit, my greatest reward would be to the sustainability as a nurse entrepreneur.
Because I see you talking about adding these different pillars, and what it is for me is you recognizing, as people come to you for one thing, that they need this other thing, and so often we don't recognize that. So often we keep this tunnel vision, well, you came to me for this, so this is what I'm going to give you, and not recognizing that also they may have come to you for this, but it was this other thing that led them to come to you for this first thing in the first place.
Absolutely.
You know, so for me, that's really huge. I love all those pillars you have out there, that kind of thing. So for you've said over 100,000 nurses.
Mhm.
First of all, for me, that is a big accomplishment. But it's only been 23 years, so you must have a huge vision. What is that vision? What is that big vision?
So basically I'm on that current path now, right? And so the end goal, because I am at the 23 years and 16 years in nurse entrepreneurship, but it is to continue to educate, right? That's my path. My path is wherever education takes me, out of hospital education. So that either that be leadership education or clinical practice or writing the guidelines. Again, I'm on the ENA's foundation board. I'm also a very active ENA member in the Emergency Nurse Association and other professional organizations too. So right now I'm that person, right, who's guiding clinical practice, but it's not in hospital. So I bring a different eye. And if you like, I can speak to that too with the Run the Vault.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So
That is awesome because as we can see, the practice of I don't know if I want to call it healthcare, but the practice of disease management is actually changing. And even though hospitals are still core, perhaps, of that, it is becoming that core is shrinking a bit. And the practice of disease management is actually, becoming a wider thing outside of the actual hospital framework. So you developing all of these different people in these different areas, is a huge thing because it is what we need. And it seems like not many of us are doing that, are recognizing that we need to develop stuff outside of that.
the box. That's where I stand, outside the box. I've always have, I always will. Outside the box. It's my niche.
Speaking of outside the box, I don't know if this is outside the box, but it triggered in my mind just now when you said that. So, what led you to the army? What led you to the military?
Oh, again, I was rebelling. I was a simple teenager, as most teenagers do. My parents were also military veterans, and they were stationed in Germany. And I rebelled, and I knew that my grandmother would let me do whatever. And so, as my parents was pushing for college, I was like, no, military. And my mom was like, no, go to college first, and then go to the military. And I said, no, I'm going to the military. So I waited until they left for Stuttgart, Germany. And I was a transportation officer. I waited till they went to Stuttgart, Germany, and I had encouraged my grandmother to sign the papers. I could go to the military, to the army after graduation, after high school graduation.
I'm laughing because when you said that out of the box thing, I got that rebel thing coming at me. That's why I had to ask that question.
Absolutely, always. Absolutely,
Okay.
always. Funny. It's
Can you
funny.
hear something like that? Oh my goodness, Shawntay, that's too funny.
Resonate when I just said it. I'm like, oh wow, that is it. It's totally out the box. But yeah, was a rebel, if you will.
Okay, I see that. Okay, and so I could see that whole thing now. I can see that whole thing now because this is what leads you into thinking outside the box and creating these leaders and letting people know that they have what it takes to stand wherever they need to stand.
And so one of the things, and it's funny that you said that, it goes back to elementary school. This program was called Creative Learning in a Unique Environment. And today, there's about 4,000 students in Tennessee that have gone through this program. And so I was one of the students fortunate enough to be involved in this program. And I always kept that in the back of mind. So while there is that rebel in me, right, there's also that creative learning in a unique environment that meshes with that rebel. And so it's me. It makes me I've like that before too.
That's really is a good thing. Because too many of us are held in a straitjacket where we cannot learn. It's not that we cannot learn, it's that we cannot learn in this straitjacket. So that's an awesome thing. What advice would you give someone who wants to be a nurse? Today is really hard. I think of what I see and what nurses are telling me today, and I wonder if I were a young person today wanting to start out, how many thoughts I would give to really wanting to be a nurse. How much would I want to be a nurse? Would I try to do something else, even if that's what I in here wanted?
I think that my advice for anyone considering nursing is to join the profession. Like, come on, go to school, do your thing. Others have done it before you. You too can do it. It is not impossible. It is not as hard as it was before. They have Dr. Google now. They have things that we didn't have, 20, 30, 40 years ago, where we've been only washing our hands for 50, right? And so
Yeah.
there's so many things that they can do. And while it may be challenging for some, learning disabilities and developmental challenges and, attention deficits and things like that, but do it. Others with those same problems have done it before you. We need nurses. Give it a shot. If it's not for you, then it may not be that clinical nursing is for you, but then I'm a product of what non-clinical nursing looks like, because I left it a long time ago, and developed a successful career. So, I mean,
Yes.
it's in nursing. You never know what these millennials and other generations will think of outside the box. Let's give them a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I'm hoping to see with all this exposure to different areas of nursing, different types of nursing, is this notion that nurses eat their young. Um, I'm hoping to hear less and less of it, just because we all don't need to feel stuck. I feel like sometimes people who supposedly bully other nurses are just feeling stuck, And programs like yours that allow people to move into different areas, that give people the confidence to be effective leaders, the confidence, the knowledge, whatever they need to be effective leaders, in my view, should help relieve some of that bullying that really is um a symptom of insecurity I think.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. So that's it. That's a huge thing. The other thing I'm hearing a lot about is burnout. Is burnout. How can we battle this burnout?
So I can tell you personally, I experienced burnout as an in-hospital leader. I experienced burnout. My team, it just became overwhelming, just too much to deal with. I felt that I was like a gerbil in a cage, right? On the wheel. I was just running in circles because it was constant contact. Unfortunately, we've moved from back in the day where we were able to think through processes, and now we just elevate the process, right? And so I told my team full access to me. So I was on 24/7. So as a
Yes.
leader, I experienced burnout, and how I regained that is I set limits with my team, and I had to be firm but fair and tell them, hey, we are the all-star team here. We're all stars. I need you to handle this and let me know what you did in the morning. If it's something that I need to elevate, I can elevate it in the morning. I don't need to know what's going on your ship.
Yes.
I don't need to know it. I'm sorry. It took a lot of a healthy workforce environment, setting limits, letting them know that they're leaders, they're all stars, they can do it, like encouraging them beyond, sending them to conferences and things like that. I have more education for them. That was education that they wanted, not
Yeah.
with mandatory, but if they saw something in a journal or online that they wanted to attend that would make them a better employee for me, then I'll let them do it. And I paid them for it too. And it made them feel more empowered, and it helped me through burnout, and it also helped them to develop as better nurses and of course as leaders.
Yeah. And that right there is what a secure and confident leader does. Yeah, you develop your team,
Right,
to
absolutely.
the floor.
Right. Yeah. In this techno era, though, we've gotten constant contact, and I can see I meet with many, many leaders who are totally burnt out, and I try to help them through that. Like, one, by being an ear, right? A lot of times, if you work for a hospital system, you don't want to talk to the people who are in your hospital system. So
Yeah.
that ear, I'm the nurse entrepreneur. I'm not affiliated with a hospital system, and then come talk to me and lay it all out and cry, and we can talk through it. And then I'm like, okay, talk them off the ledge, and then we're okay. And I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
not to give them guidance on how to lead their team, but to hear what they have to say.
Yeah. And that's a very necessary person to have in your sphere. Yeah. Somebody who can just hear you. Just hear you.
Be sit at the water cooler tomorrow because that person doesn't know where you work or what you do. So it makes for a better experience.
I have, well, there are two things I want to ask you. One is what does self-care mean to you?
Ooh, self-care means taking care of Shawntay. So what that looks like for me, what I do for that is that I
Mhm.
compress, right? And so here we go. So usually Mondays is my day to do things that I want to do, things that would elevate me or relax me or, put me in a position where I'm good. Today I'm in Atlanta. I'm having dinner with my sorority sister. That's relaxing for me. Whereas Thursday I'm, in Arizona on the stage again doing another talk. So it's that for me. It's what makes me, what centers me, what's my peace, and getting there. And that means, communicating with family, friends, friends that I haven't heard from in a long time, that I haven't seen, reaching out to them. And Monday is my day to do that. These are the days that I have time. This is the day that I have time to talk.
I ask that, and I ask that of everyone because I recognize that many times when we say we don't take care of ourselves, but we say that in a way that is just, we don't take care of ourselves, and hasn't really stopped to think about what exactly does that mean, because to every single person, self-care is a different thing. Yeah, it means taking care of ourselves, but what is that
What is
that
that?
is taking care of you? And if you haven't identified it and paid attention to it, then you're not going to do it.
Mhm. That's so true. That's so true. If you don't
Yeah.
actually acknowledge the fact that you need to
Yeah.
rest and recharge, then you won't do it. And
Then
self-care
you
is exactly resting and recharging.
Yeah, yeah. And as nurses and as women, we tend to put everybody else first, and we tend to leave ourselves. And so I ask that because I want every time every person who sees this to think to themselves, well, what does self-care mean to me? What am I doing for me?
That's
Yeah.
exactly. It can be so simple. Something just as getting that coffee that you normally wouldn't
Yeah.
get, and just going to a park and sip it slow. Whereas
Yes.
something tuck down coffee because we're nervous. But what about that day when you actually get to taste your favorite drink? I was like, what about your taste? What about
Hmm.
your favorite coffee? Just, without like
Yeah.
just kind of just sip it and sit in the park and look at the bird, listen to the birds. It's very different.
Yes, indeed it is. Indeed it is. And that's the thing I want. And I want people to recognize it does not have to be something that goes for any length of time. If 10 minutes is what you need to send to you, then 10 minutes will be do fine. And if a whole day is what you need, then a whole day is what you need. But just identify what works for you and do it. And do it. So the other question I have for you is this. I'm asking people, I'm going to tell you what started this question in my mind, first of all. I started to recognize that I could recognize nurses without ever being told that somebody's a nurse. And so I thought to myself, well, what was it exactly that I saw? Because, my mind said that's a nurse, but what is it that I saw made me know that that person was a nurse? And so I started to ask nurses, if you could describe for me the most recognizable quality of a nurse in one word, what would that word be?
Multitasker.
Multitasker. Indeed. Indeed. That's a good one.
Multitasker.
Definitely. 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 Yeah.
Regardless of our specialty, ED, we kind of own the multitasking thing. But regardless of our specialty or our clinical practice or where we are in leadership or any other thing, a nurse is a nurse is a nurse. And we are truly multitasking. Rarely will we do one thing and nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one that you said, because I tell people our brain works in parallel lines. We're thinking this, and this, and it's all going forward at the same time. And it's like, yeah, we're multitasking.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we go, Shawntay, and thank you so much for this, but is there anything else you'd like to share with me?
Well, I do. I want to tell nurses, and this is just a broad statement, I want to stress the importance of your network, right? Your networking. A lot of nurses, we've gotten away from the power of networking. It's not all the time. It will not always be what you know, but who you know. So reach
Mhm.
out to your professional organizations and things like that to help you get to your next step. The power of networking. Who is that circle of professional people, or who do you need to involve in your professional circle to get you to your next step or to define where you are now?
Yeah,
Network.
yes. That is huge. Not just who you know, but who knows you too.
Who knows you? Mhm.
Yeah, that really is. And I have to say that I have experienced the value of what you just said um many times because it is really who you have been in contact with and who knows you and who has seen your capabilities and who can you reach out to. And yes, so that's really big. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Shawntay, thank you so much. So very much for
So
this
much for
really
having
lovely conversation.
me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It has been great.